Good morning and welcome to Geotab's latest webinar. On September the 17th, we released our truck solution for Europe. The solution got introduced in a high-level business-focused webinar. Today, we present the more technical aspects of the truck solution for Europe, the MyGeotab tachograph features in particular. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the questions box and we will try to cover them at the end of this session. I am Ingo de Schrijver, Business Development Manager Truck here at Geotab, and joining me today are Ilyan Ivanov and Jorge Ruiz. I'll now hand over to Ilyan, who will be taking us through the presentation today.
Thank you very much, Ingo. Morning all. Thank you for joining this webinar. As Ingo said, my name is Ilyan. I'm part of the solutions engineering team and I work very closely with resellers and as customers. So a bit of information about what we're going to go through today. For those of you who not know, we'll look at Geotab in a bit of details, what we do, about us and who we are. There'll be some reflections to think about, so it'll be a different approach. We want you guys to have a think about these things before we jump into the presentation. And then we'll go through it in the end in terms of, what you get out of the solution. We'll look at the solution with a bit of an overview, followed by quite a few details as we go into the setup, clearances, authentications, and roles. Again, we'll look at different modules, such as the automatic remote download, the time activity control, and the advanced file analysis. And then we'll go back to the reflections we gave you guys at the very beginning to go through the answers and, what you think about it, followed by available resources which will help support you as you use the tachograph, such as the frequently asked questions documents and other documents for reference. And of course, at the end, we'll be able to go through any questions you guys might have for us. So a bit about Geotab. For those of you, this might be the first time. We are an engineering company, work heavily with data. We've been around for about 20 years now. We started in the early 2000s in North America. So fairly small, but in the last 20 years, we've grown quite big. We've maxed over 1,000 employees with a strong presence in North America through Canada, US, and Mexico. You'll find that we have offices in some of the most major Western European cities, and currently a growing presence in China and Australia. We also have the largest penetration in the Fortune 500 companies and very financially strong. Just a bit about, this is the reflection section I spoke to you guys about. So we all know the tachograph is the law and you do need to comply. And there are some, there's a reason why it needs to be done. But if you think about it, besides it being the law, what do you get out of the system? What's the point of doing it? Why should you? So I want you guys to think about these for a second. And like I said, we'll go through at the end. Think about these three questions, and what answer do you think is correct? So get about the digital tachograph, yes, it is the law. But what are the three objectives of it? Like, what do you want to get out of it? What do you want to achieve? Or what can it do for your fleet? For you, some of the most obvious answers might be asked the question too. There's obviously fines, and if infringements do take place, extra cost. But what is actually the maximum fine an employee is liable for if you don't provide these records of the tachograph? Again, we'll go through it in the end, but the remote downloads, which the solution does provide, is such an easy way to prevent this. And finally, again, let's say that your drivers are not following the correct break or rest periods, or they're not complying with any of that. What are the fines for those? The real-time insights or the infringement analysis from the tachograph is one way that this can be prevented. But again, we'll look for it in the end. But while we do the presentation, think about these, and we'll see what we get to in the end. We'll jump straight into the tachograph solution itself. It is an add-in. The Geotab tachograph is available on MyGeotab or can be installed there. And again, it's a tool that helps control and to analyze information generated by vehicles and drivers or data generated by them. We'll cover different modules in this presentation, and which will allow you to take advantage of the services of the tachograph, the functions it has, and make sure you can make the most out of the data that your vehicle provides. Bear in mind, the add-in does show information in real time with very, very high detail. So again, it allows fleet managers to generate specific reports that you need for your drivers or fleet and create those cost-saving plans that can, really help your fleet. So starting off with how we configure. So we'll jump into a little bit about clearances and roles, but how it's actually set up. Before you actually get the add-in on your user interface or MyGeotab, on the left screen, you'll see you have to populate the following fields. So let's say you can set up your country, if it's Spain. Bear in mind that this is configured as per language. So if you select a country where the language is not English, the system will be able to pick that up. Please also insert the database you'll be working from. So my.geotab.com followed by the correct database after that. And select an email for a user that will have the administrative permissions for that database. Just please bear in mind that user credentials used to activate the add-in are not stored, okay? And this account is only used to configure the database and create the service account with minimal privileges that they can have after. So again, once you've completed all these fields, you'll see the activate button at the very bottom, and click that to finish the activation. And if the process is successful, you'll get your success message that it's all well. If you do encounter errors, please do contact support for any assistance. Moving forward, a bit about clearances and roles. You'll find that as for the solution, there's 6 clearances available. So I'll give you an example. Administrative supervisor are the highest ones. Again, that gives you access to remote digital download plus and remote digital download, the time activity control, and the advanced analysis. So again, different clearances do allow you to do different things. Again, if the default clearances do not meet your needs, you can always set up within MyGeotab sub-clearances to tailor access to those specific roles. And this feature is accessible in the Tachograph add-in and can be accessed by filtering by Tachograph when creating a new sub-clearance. Module activations do follow the vehicle rate plan. Please bear that in mind. So if your rate plan includes the AFA module or the advanced file analysis module, users will not have access to the AFA report, even if they can have the AFA feature access. So in other words, please contact your Geotab reseller if that's necessary. A little bit about the actual remote company card or how that can be accessed and how it can integrate with the system. The Geotab Tachograph solution does need an authentication software to be installed on any PC, but it is compatible with Windows and Linux. In simple terms, you need a USB card reader, and it works as easy as plugging into the USB of your PC. The authentication software itself, which you can see on the screen, does offer multi-fleet management, but it can also do local and manual download, depending on your preference. Just a bit of information about it. As I said, quite easy to install, so there isn't that IT know-how required in order to set it up. From a data security point, there wouldn't be anything that will prevent you guys or make it more difficult to install it within your system. So quite straightforward and quite easy to do. Just a little information about the hosting itself. So the company card, so that has the same software that manages multi-fleet and can be hosted by the reseller. Tachograph file downloads with the download key can be uploaded by a manual upload. What we can also do is a weekly download alert in the form of an email. So it's an email notification that provides a general status. We'll look at that in some of the further slides. And last but not least, we can integrate with third-party solutions via the Geotab API. Again, the solution itself is already integrated with some of the more known providers such as OPAC3 and Smart Analysis. What the solution can also do is proactively send you guys an email should you find that there is something wrong or there's an error or there's a warning. So here's an example. Let's say that there was, for example, errors or warnings within the system. What the solution will do is send you an email, and as you can see from the title, it will list the database where the error took in, followed by how many errors. If you go further down the page, what you'll see is you'll get a summary of the list of errors and warnings. So, for example, for this particular database, company cards have no errors but one warning. Vehicle downloads, no issues at all, and the driver downloads a total of 1 errors. But that doesn't really tell you much. So we have a further section below these examples where it will detail these exact errors and warnings. So again, get the database name, so we know where it happened, what the warning was. Again, there isn't a valid card connected, so you get an explanation as to what it is, and followed by what you need to do in order to fix it, and even the driver error. So, you know, the driver's been flagged, this legal limit is overdue on this particular thing. So again, something to look at. And of course, you get the driver name. So this is the bit where we kind of start to really dig deeper into the module themselves. So as I said previously, We'll cover these three, so the remote digital download, time activity control, and the advanced file. Just a bit about the remote digital download. This is where you can manage your downloaded files at any time and basically stay informed about their status or the status of their company card. And in this module, we've broken it down to 4 sections. So the status side, how the downloads are, company cards, and inspections. So you have your add-in installed, it works well on the Geotab user interface. And at the very beginning, it might look there's a little bit too much detail. But what I've done is just number these for you so we can go through in a bit more detail every single section and what's happening and what we can see. So again, as I said before, this is real time, and the remote status of all vehicles and drivers in the fleet is provided as a summary there. You get very detailed information about the last download date, the next download date, again, the status of communication within the tachograph, or whether the tachograph's unlocked or not. As recommended by us, please do view this at least once per week. Furthermore, in the event that the driver or a vehicle is no longer within the company, that asset must be archived. And again, this is more to prevent errors due to the download. Please bear in mind that archiving does not erase that data, which means it's never lost. And if the activity is received from an archived vehicle or driver, it can automatically be de-archived. A bit about what you see in the table. So we'll go through in all of the numbers. Looking at number 1. So this is basically your vehicle or driver filters. Again, you're more than welcome to filter by whichever one suits you best. Self-explanatory. Going on to number 2. This is your company card number. So you'll see there where it's blurred out, that's your card, followed by the number. And this section shows data of your company cards and their overall status. So an example would be if the card is connected and function normally, that will be displayed. And if there's an error detected, the application will show a warning message instead. And please bear in mind that if there is no card present, that will also be flagged as a warning message. Moving on to number 3, and this is probably the bigger chunk of the screen you'll see now. Again, quite detailed, but we'll break it down to smaller sections. So what you'll find is that each row, I'll go through them individually. So to start with the summary, again, pretty much a summary of the vehicle. So, regarding the, if you see a blue symbol next to it, it basically means it was off, green means it was cruising, orange is driving, as an example here, or X simply means the vehicle has been disconnected. Again, we'll also get you the vehicle or driver name, and then we move on to the tachograph status, which is this field here. Again, similar to the kind of summary for the vehicles, you'll be able to see if there was a disconnection that took place. Was there any error within that? Such as the tachograph not communicating and the ignition is on, which will basically check the installation if necessary. Is the tachograph asleep, or is the tachograph ready for the download to commence? Moving on, you'll see your tachograph lock status. Again, a bit about the symbols. They're probably self-explanatory, but you can have an unknown one, which means we don't know what's happened. We've received an error. Locked, so the tachograph is locked with a correct company card embedded within. Also not locked, as you can see, so no company card present. Or what you can also do is flag if there was a lock mismatch. In other words, the tachograph is locked with the wrong company card. Okay, followed by the next column on the right, which is your download status. If it's okay, then there will be no pending actions. If there's an authentication one, it means that the system is authenticating the company card. You can flag for download, which means the download file locally. You can also have a completed notification, which means a transfer to the file to the server is done. Upgrading, which means currently upgrading to firmware. You can also have programmed, where the download is pending itself, or others in other type that it's busy with other tasks. Okay, moving on, we also have an alert section, so that shows all the warnings or errors within the tachograph that have occurred, followed by the kind of more obvious columns in terms of date and time. So here's an example of the last download, so when that took place. What you can also do is compare that to the legal limit. So we'll say, well, okay, my legal limit is due in then, and I have, let's say, 72 days left. So again, quite an easy way for you guys to track, you know, am I over the limit? How many days have I got left? Kind of gives you that that mindset to prepare in advance for it. Again, moving on to the next download or the download type. Two ways of doing that. So the download can be done remote, or you can do it manual, which means the vehicle downloads have to be uploaded manually rather than it's done automatically. Again, quite a few things we can look at from this point of view. So as I said, the last download, the schedule date, the legal limit, the next download, and again, last but not least, calibration. So again, don't forget that when the tachograph card itself is due for calibration, that will be flagged on here, followed by the last connection. Moving on, what you'll see from column 4 is the schedule for this day. So again, you can set that for today's date. So the download will not start until the ignition of the vehicle is turned on, and this feature is only available for admin roles. Moving forward, you can defer that by 1 week. So picking the button showing the number 5. Again, it's a way of deferring the download for the next week. Was that, and of course, only for admin roles again. But what you can also do is using the archive option, you can hide those vehicles or drivers that you no longer want to view. So again, archived assets are not permanently deleted, as highlighted before, and can be retrieved at any time from your resources section. We also have a great functionality of watches, which means you can subscribe here to all the company tachograph notifications. So you know you never miss out on an important email or important data that's been delivered. And again, it's just a summary of all your vehicles or drivers. And we also have a little function here called the help dialog. Again, just shows you information about automatic or manual downloads and how you can download that to the software. A little bit about the remote digital downloads. For the downloads themselves, this will show you all the legal files in one place as per this page. Again, a bit about what's happening or what each of the functions are. So starting with number 1. So this is the selector, which means you can basically select whether you would like to view that the driver or the vehicle. And then going on to number 2, again, the bulk of the table is this. So starting from left to right, we can view the download status of each file, source, or in other words, the file upload method. We can get information about the file name, information on the vehicle, such as the registration number. You also have the option to send the file to external software, or the operations section where you can download each file individually and analyze the driver files. Next section is the wizard. I'll just skip that briefly as we will cover this in the next slide. What you can also do is go on and download all the files in the list, or you can simply select whichever ones you like in particular to download. Again, up to you. And finally, you can upload the files to the tachograph add-in with number 5. So a little bit of information about the wizard. As I said before, clicking on that button will take you here. And this view basically helps you download all the necessary files to cover a specific period. And again, you can download for that period without missing any of the important data or any of the infringement that the driver's gone through. Again, it has the same functionality as the inspection view which you saw before. However, the only real difference being is that the results cannot be saved. And for more information, we will provide you that near the end of the presentation. Okay, so this is some information about the company cards page. It will show you basically all the cards that are connected to the system. As you can see from the image, you'll get some information on days until expiration, when was the last update, status, followed by card and company name. However, important to bear in mind that expired cards are not shown by default in this view. But again, it's not that they've been removed, but they can be configured within the view settings so that you can see them. Going forward, regarding the inspection section, again, what you probably find that it's quite similar in terms of the menu, how you can navigate through it and what are the different options available as per the previous sections. So again, from number 1, you have an inspections filter. Again, just filter for certain inspections you want to look at. What you can also do is create a new inspection if you click the plus sign in number 2. And again, you can do that for legal requirements by filling out the form provided in the image below. And you have a bit of information about the inspection itself. So what you'll see from the table is the list of inspections created. And again, you can access each of those details by simply clicking on the inspection itself. Okay, again, next stage about the inspections. Here's just the list of some of them that have taken place. Again, drivers with their activity and corresponding files will appear automatically, as you can see. But what we can also do is we can check if we have the data in the legal files to complete the selected period. And again, if we need to go back for more data. If you do need more data, you can always schedule a new remote download or add the files downloaded by another system. Again, more than one way of doing it. So a bit of information on what you can see here. So number 1 is your status. So again, that's the vehicle data status which you can view. Going on to number 2. So that's the files of the vehicle themselves. So details from the vehicle. Just a bit of an example. So what's the source, the name and the date, followed by the driver files in number 3. Similar to vehicle, you can view the name, date, or the source of these files. And number 4. So this column here, as what you can see, this is the scheme of activity from those files. So during the inspection period, what exactly took place, and this is as per the tachograph symbols, which you'll see below. Again, moving on to number 5, you can view it inspections again. So this is all the information about the inspection itself. And if you would like to obtain those files, simply click the download button as shown. Okay. So just to give you guys a bit of an overview in terms of, what's the value behind this. So as you can see, so the archiving of the tachograph and the driver can be all automated. So there's none of that spending extra time to do that or going through the manual downloads. From a data point of view, it is securely stored within the cloud. Pretty much compatible with any single web browser, so quite flexible. And again, it's the law. So there are legal obligations which you need to comply. So that ticks that box. And again, when it does come to the expiration of the company card and the driver card, that can all be visible within the system. And again, send in the form of an alert by an email to inform you guys that happened. Fully compatible with most major providers or manufacturers such as Stonebridge and VDO. And again, it complies with Smart Tachograph Generations 4.0. Moving on to the next module. So this is the time control. So a bit about it. Real-time driving and time information is what you receive. You can also create historical reports from here based on all the available legal downloads. And similar to the previous section, we'll cover a bit about the status of it, how does the activity chart work, and how the report for work and rest times is configured. Okay. So you guys probably will find that it's a similar sort of pattern throughout all of them. So again, quite easy to read once you get used to it. And so starting with number 1, this is your filter menu. So again, you can filter by table unit or by any particular activity. If you look at number 2, what you can also do is, let's say you want to filter, you're more than welcome to clear that. Looking at number 3, which is quite detailed on here, you can see the progress for the day or the progress bar for the work day, such as was there rest, was there driving time. Again, going on to number 4. So this is a bit of information about the progress bar of the driver test. Again, you can view that for more information. And last but not least is number 5, where all of this data can be exported within an Excel format. So it's just for you guys that you can edit them and you can view that data for yourself and download on your PC. Okay. Going forward, again, so more information about the time activity control. So this is the activity chart itself. Again, all the sections are numbered. Starting with 1, which is where you can select the driver to show their current activity. Number 2 is also the period time. So again, for when you want the data to display for in between which dates. Similar to before, you can clear the filter if you're not happy with what you selected. And on to number 4, which is the table where you get all the activity in the selected periods, or each row basically corresponds to a particular date you've set. And you can also print all of this report again. You can print it, email it on an Excel format. A bit about the work report itself. Again, it's just a way of showing all the cumulative values of activity carried out in a vehicle by a particular driver. So these values are used to verify compliance with labor regulations and work hours. Again, one way in which you can monitor that on here. Just go through briefly in the examples what you can see. So looking at number 1, we get some information about the inspection for each driver for the following period that's been selected. Again, you click on the details to see more, which is in number 2. So you can switch between the summary report and the details report. Quite a bit different. Detail, obviously more detail. Summary, again, more compact information. And number 3, which is where you can select the regions or the countries which you want this to apply to as per the effective work calculation. Okay, moving on to the work report. Again, when you click on the detail button, you will see information for those selected drivers. So similar to before, same style of information, number 1 for the driver, such as work time, driving time, whether he's available. You can also change between the summary or the detail report in number 2, as I explained. And again, you can select the required region. Okay, again, following the work report, pretty self-explanatory. It could be a driving time, work time, availability. What's the sum of driving and work? Again, sum of driving and work time in the current country or territory that you're in. Again, you can compare that to international territory. Also, you can do the sum of the rest time and the unknown time that's not been done, followed by night work hours, the total distance you covered, and the daily distance. Okay. A bit about the rest report. Again, displays all the daily or weekly breaks taken by your drivers within a given period. So again, start date, the start, how long was the duration for? Has to be the vehicle itself, the address where the driver started to rest, and again, setting the button, you can input the amount of valid rest. Again, a bit about value-added information about the time analysis. So it is real-time information, again, which helps take those right decisions. And from that point of view, you can monitor, was it driving, was there infringement between driving time, working time, resting hours on a daily or weekly or bi-weekly. Again, what the solution will do is give you that overall status of each of those times and what's the compensation needed using those driving times efficiently. You can also help observe legal requirements, which when you combine all this together, simplifies your planning. Now we'll move on to the last module, which is the advanced file analysis. And this basically provides all the necessary information in order to prevent and so make sure there's no infringements, and to document and appeal if there are any penalties that have been incurred. Some of the sections we'll look at is the infringements, the places, record reports, as well as all the certificates that are there, followed by analysis modules for activity files. Okay, so at first view, this is your advanced file analysis, in particular the infringement reports. You'll probably notice that again, as per the previous sections, you can filter per driver or per vehicle. Just to kind of break down each section to see what's happening or what you can see. Number 1 is the menus filter, so you can filter by driver or per vehicle, depends on if you want to view a particular infringement. Then you can look at your infringement data, which is number 2. So the infringement table for the vehicle or the driver for that selected period will be highlighted here. You can also dig down into the list of infringements. Again, quite detailed information as to exactly what's happened. Going further down, again, you have the option of a detail or summary report. You can switch between the two, whether you want more details or just a general breakdown of what's happened. And you can also have the option to switch from a table format to an aggregate mode. But again, entirely up to you guys how you want to do that data. So a bit more information about the infringement report. So here you see that each type of infringement that's taken place. Again, you can look at each one individually. You can see a bit about the description. So how long it lasted for, what was the average speed, what was the maximum speed during those infringements. And again, you're more than welcome to download all this data within an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so this is the infringement report, but the driver detail view. It's summarized in one chart view, or you can view that in multiple charts view. What the one chart view will do is it will offer you a comprehensive list of all the activities, each which is based on the date period which you've selected, which you can see above. And as usual, you're more than capable of expanding or collapsing the dates by simply scrolling in, zooming out. So what you'll also see that each shows for each type of infringement the time and date of occurrence based on the date range and its description. So here's a good example of, for that date, bi-weekly was exceeded, time infringement of 3 hours and 55 minutes. Okay, what we can also do, as I said before, we can also view in a multiple chart format, and it basically shows the activity chart per infringement over the dates indicated within the date range. So again, here's your activity chart in number 1. You can also see the list of charts and tables as per each infringement, as well as you can change your view whether it's multiple charts or the order. Okay, basis report. So again, very similar view. It's just a bit of understanding to how you can navigate through it and what each section means. So I'll start from the very beginning. You see the filter quite often now. So again, you can filter for different date or vehicle, or you can for different period. Entirely up to you how you want to do that. We also have the activity chart, which is number 2. So this displays the driver activity for the selected date and time period. And what you probably see is that it was driving, he took a rest, work, and of course that can all be summarized in here. Number 3 is your places table. So all it displays is the timestamp per place. In other words, there are rows where the instance took place, and if there was a duplicate, a place match, that will be highlighted in red. And of course, you can zoom into any of these to kind of see what exactly took place. Following next slide, so about the records report. Again, it's just a way of displaying information or to view all the available records on your cards and in the tachograph files themselves. This includes events and faults. You can also look at control activities, whether there was any overspeeding involved, whether any tachograph calibrations. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So the very first section, so number 1, this is where your records are. So they're represented as icons, which indicate how severe an incident is. So info here, you'll see it's in blue, just information. If there was a warning, it will be in yellow. And of course, if it was any error, it will be flagged as red. Going on to number 2, this is the effective work. So what each cell will do is it will indicate the work time for that particular date. If you look at the shade of the cell itself, that will indicate how many hours the driver worked for that date. So in other words, the darker the shade, the more hours he spent working. You can also filter as per before. So you can see the type of filter we have. We can look for all, or we can look at some specific ones, such as, for example, card conflict, or if there was a card insertion error, if there was a control activity, not really limited how you can do it. And last but not least, again, you can look at all this data within a detail or within a summary report. Okay, a bit of information about certificates. Very useful, as you can use this to manage the attestation of all activities. So the certificates themselves, you can view or display existing attestations as yellow shading, which you'll see here, over the activity of each driver. And any period that the driver needs to justify, shaded in red. So obviously missing information there. You can select the period you wish by simply just clicking on it in the box. You can fill in that attestation as shown below. And then you can actually print all of that within a paper copy so the driver can have access to it and view it. So pretty self-explanatory, like I said, what they do. So here's the period without entry, so nothing's been put. Or there's a period with entry as well, so number 2 shaded in yellow. And what you can also do is add a new entry if you choose to, as per top shown in number 3. Okay, then we'll move on to our activity analyzer. Again, as I said before, there are some regulations that need to be followed. So a very important view to have on you, or a very important page to view. What you'll see is it will display all the detailed information about the counters used to calculate the total driving and resting times. But you can also use the source selector in order to choose the source data that the platform uses for calculation. The default source is called combine, which uses file data up to and including the last available file combined with real-time and stream data. Again, there'll be quite a few details here. There's quite a few details there that we'll have to go through. As you can see, different sections. So some of the stuff you can see as for number 1, you get a timeline, which is the full range of the current zoomed in time range that you can currently see. Again, you can pick the timeline to reset the selection, or to scroll in, or to change the selection themselves. Again, the first chart row, which you see here, that shows the activity changes. So, was he at rest? Was he at work? And for how long? Moving on to the second row, you can see the driving activity. So if there was any continuous driving, that will be highlighted in black. Moving down forward, that row will show you the daily activity. So, what works were carried out. Again, black will highlight, again, there was continuous driving. Going down forward, you can see a summary of your weekly driving, followed by further down below your bi-weekly driving as per the vehicle. And if you look even below that, you'll see your place records. So records are represented using the standard tachograph symbols as you see here. And finally, you can show the vehicle use records. And what you'll find is that these records are represented as per the box that is shown between the card insertion and the card withdrawal. Next section, which is number 2, is your activity table. So again, a bit of information on the detail or the activity of the driver. You can also look at the source selector from number 3. So again, the driver activity, whether there was any what information was there, or from what source. And moving on to number 4, we have different tabs available where you can view different tables. So the activity one you can see here. We can also view that by continuous driving. So whether there was continuous driving time, whether there was a break in between, etc. We can also look at our daily driving. So for that particular day, what were the work days, what was the rest time, and of course fixed driving, which is on a weekly or bi-weekly periods. The last few bits about the AFA, or the Advanced File Analyzer. By seeing this view, you can see that all the raw file data, and you can detect corrupted or unexpected data in the legal files. What you can see is all the detailed information about the content of the files, how the data is organized, following the internal file structure. So looking at number 1, this is all your interactive timeline. So this is the full-time range of the period you've selected. And again, you can click on this timeline if you're not happy with the selection and pick a different period. Number 2 is the activity chart. So again, you're more welcome to zoom in and out to see in more detail what's happened with that driver or vehicle or what they've done. You can also look at your activity table. So again, a bit about summary of how many, what length of driving was done, how long was the break, what distance was driven. And as per the previous section, you have all these different tabs available. So again, you have a daily summary. You can look at your activity, such as was there any change in it. You can look at the vehicle use, such as the card insert, the withdrawal records, and of course you have a place to record and debug. Just a bit about, you know, the AFA or why it's so important. So again, it's a report that can be shared with the managers and drivers, and the printed option is available. All violations are listed and are accessible as per this. And of course, there is, again, a legal obligation which needs to be done. So a bit about the questions I asked you guys at the very beginning. Let's look at these reflections. So the first one was, what were the 3 objectives of this program? One of the most obvious ones was probably, yes, it does relate to road safety. So you control the activity, such as limiting the daily driving hours. You can ensure the drivers are properly rested and they're ready to go on the journey. And you can also make sure that they follow the minimum working conditions, which is the law, or they comply as per standard for professional drivers. And it's about the fair competition between certain companies within Europe. I also asked you guys about what you're eligible for, or what are the infringements can do to you in terms of cost. So again, it depends on how severe the incident is. Currently, there is no time limit set for investigation in Tachograph, so it can go on for quite a bit. For the infringement of the driver hours, offences can be investigated up to 6 months. So quite a big time period, and the calculation of the fine is actually proportional to the seriousness of the infringement and what are the consequences of it. And if you do fail to provide this information, you may face a fine of up to £5,000. And lastly, this was an example from Germany about fines if you don't respect the driving time, the break, or the rest period. And just to give you guys an understanding, drivers and the companies can be both liable for these infringements. So, you know, it's important to look after your company, but in drivers in particular, which is where it all starts from. So for a driver, the fine may be up to €30 if they have been driving for too long or didn't take the appropriate breaks, and can go up to 500 when they rest in their truck or similar location, but they're obliged to flag that they are resting. For the company itself, it could be as much as €90 for each hour the driver did not rest, which means it would result into €270 for about a 3-hour rest violation. And it can further increase to 1,500 if they don't comply with the correct weekend rest regulations. So here's just a use case from France, just to give you an example of how serious it can be, and you know what could be the outcome if the tachograph's not respected. So the police stopped the truck again, and after checking the tachograph from the last 28 days, they found that there was many 23 violations, almost 8 hours without a break, and then there was well, he should have taken a break for about 4 hours and 30 minutes driving, and as a result of that, there was a requirement for about €12,000 deposit, and the driver could only start working 19 hours after 19 hours when the company paid the fee. So if you think about it, it's quite serious with what you can get out of it. So very important to comply and respect it. Just to give you guys an overview, you know, once you're kind of using the tachograph, we have many different resources that can support you through it. So we have a set of documents that will frequently asked questions, or the documents of reference. And what we'll give you is a reseller guide, followed by an end user guide. Again, very detailed with a lot of information if you encounter an issue or you're not sure where to go to. In terms of documents and references, we've broken it down to 2 sections. So we have a kind of technical side, which is more how to order, how to support, how to install. But there's also a commercial side to it. So such as the truck reseller toolkit, which will help you know essentially target audience and your relevant marketing channels and the relevant materials you need. Thank you guys. I'll hand it back over to Luis and I'll take any of your questions.
Yes, thank you, Ilian. So far, everything has been very well explained. No questions whatsoever. Well, again, thank you, Ilian, then for the oversight, Jorge for the support. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session. We hope you have a great day, and look forward to seeing you then on the 3rd round of seminars in November, where we will present the Geotab Truck Marketplace. So thank you for your time this morning. Have a great day.